Welcome to the Korea Pro podcast. I'm your host, Jeongmin Kim, the editorial director of Korea Pro.
And I'm John Lee, the editor of Korea Pro.
Join us for a weekly 15-minute conversation as we dive into the most pressing stories shaping South Korea and dissect the most complicated ones for you.
From politics to culture, technology to society, we've got you covered. So stay ahead of the curve and never be sidelined again.
So get ready for a fresh perspective on South Korea's news. This is the Korea Pro podcast.
Okay, it is Thursday, April 18th, and we are recording a day earlier as usual, and Jeongmin is off this week. And so we have our favorite news trainees here, Juna, Park, and Lina, and it is also Lina's birthday today! Happy birthday!
Thank you.
As usual, it's been a busy week in South Korea. Now, the elections are over, and as soon as the elections were over, Jeongmin and I mentioned this last week, there have been a spate of resignations, like the Prime Minister and the Chief of Staff. But now they have to be replaced. Now, Juna, you've been observing this for quite a while.
I have, yes. So the names that have been coming up, they have not looked very pretty. So as of now, the most striking names that have come up is Park Young-sun, the former Minister of SMEs and Startups under the Moon administration.
But hold on, those names that you're about to mention right now, the presidential office said that they have no intention of asking these people.
That's true.
How did these names even come up in the first place?
So the names came up in the first place basically from a rumor and also an article, an exclusive from Donga that released saying that the presidential office was looking to recruit voices from the prime ministerial position from the Moon administration, trying to basically go in a comeuppance to the oppositional party.
Now, I get why he might want to do this theoretically. You know, it's like the whole Lincoln thing, try to get your enemies into your administration and let them be your allies or whatever.
Right.
But what are the chances of this actually happening?
There is no chance of it actually happening. Yoon is probably going to keep his closest aides to himself, and his cabinet is probably going to be a little different from his former cabinet.
No more prosecutors.
No,
Yeah.
but still the same, as in he will surround himself with his most fervent supporters.
Speaking of supporters, this one might not be his most fervent supporters, but the mayor of Daegu, Joon-pyo.
Yeah.
Right.
Apparently, the president and Joon-pyo had dinner a couple of days ago. Now, Joon-pyo was a former presidential candidate. He was a former
Right.
PPP leader, and he has been a critic of the president. But they had dinner together. Well, what could they possibly talked about?
So Joon-pyo has been a vocal critic of the Yoon administration. He's been a vocal critic of how the Yoon administration has handled the Itaewon disaster.
And the Yoon administration deserves a lot of the criticism that
That's
it gets.
very true. We'll get on to that later. But the Hong Joon-pyo's position as a prominent member and also a popularity amongst the conservative supporters is still very much something to be considered.
So could he possibly be the next prime minister?
Oh.
He's not exactly loved by the progressives either.
Oh, I don't see that happening.
Yeah. And they have, 197 seats in the National Assembly? Now, we have to talk about this, though. Lee Jae-myung.
Right.
Now, the president said that he is open to meeting with Lee Jae-myung, which he has not done since his inauguration. He only met him once very briefly during his father's funeral for about 5 minutes, and that was the extent of it.
Yeah.
Now, okay, let's assume for a moment that the president is actually being genuine with his statement, and he does plan to meet with Lee Jae-myung. What could they possibly talk about at this point?
But I feel like you would be a little more open. I feel like there is a little more genuinity to his statement because of the election results.
Okay, but that's because he's going in a position of weakness now.
Yeah,
He
now
can't
he's going
really do anything much
Yeah.
about it. And Lee Jae-myung has all the cards in his hands.
That's very true.
And Lee Jae-myung and his ally, Joguk, have said that they're going to have investigations into all of these various allegations against Yoon, against Han Dong-un, against the First Lady, against anyone that they can
government.
get their hands
Yeah.
on. Exactly. So what could they have to talk about? They're not exactly going to be friendly with each other.
So the president's statement saying that he will meet with leaders of the opposition bloc is more of something that I think is a response, as Lina said, to the election results than something that he will succumb to Lee
Yeah,
Jae-myung's
I think he's just putting it
ploys.
out there.
So you guys are suggesting that he's doing this for show, that he's not actually going to do much to compromise or reach a deal with the opposition.
Yeah, I don't know about compromise, but he would be still willing to talk to Lee Jae-myung.
Okay, but if they're going to talk but not compromise anything, then what's the point?
Well, it's symbolism that the Yoon administration is basically showing the people that they are ready for conversation. However, not showing how much constructive that conversation will be.
I think by showing that he's more open to talk to the opposition, he just doesn't want to lose more votes than, like, more popularity, I mean.
And speaking of not having much compromise at all, we have to talk about a rather tragic anniversary that you guys covered. Now, this will be published today on Thursday, so by the time that you guys are hearing this on Friday, you would have already been able to have access to this on the website, assuming that you have subscribed, of course. If you have not, please subscribe. All right, so guys, you went to the presser. Tell me about this whole documentary thing. What happened?
Yeah, so basically, 10 years ago, on April 16th, the Sewol ferry tragically capsized and sank, resulting in the deaths of 304 people, predominantly high school students. And now a documentary crafted to mark the 10th anniversary of the Sewol ferry disaster, only like sharing the personal stories of the survivors and the families, and exploring how this significance has shaped South Korea today. And it was set to air today, actually, on April 18th.
So, okay, I remember watching this on the news 10 years ago. And I remember who the president was at the time. And that woman went to jail.
Right.
And she's not been in office for a very long time.
Right.
Why is this becoming an issue now?
The documentary set to mark the 10th anniversary of the Sewol ferry disaster has gotten attention because of the decision to postpone the documentary.
Okay, why was this postponed, Suna?
The documentary was postponed because the KBS authorities, the KBS leadership, decided that the period before and after the election, which happened on April 10, which we covered, and when the documentary was set to air on its designated broadcasting time on April 18th, was
That is
too
today.
close. Yeah, was too close in proximity and had too much influence.
Yeah.
Okay,
to
that
the
doesn't make a whole
elections.
lick of sense to me. The elections was 8 days ago, April
Absolutely.
10th.
Yeah.
And the documentary was supposed to be airing today,
Yeah.
after the elections.
Yeah.
How does this documentary that's going to air 8 days after the elections
Yeah.
hold any kinds of electoral influence? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah,
So
so,
that-
both the trailer and the documentary was set to air 8 days after the election.
Uh-huh.
But then the KBS head said 1 to 2 months within the general election will have at least some significant influence.
Even though it takes place after the elections, do they have a time machine?
Right.
So that's the crux of the argument that the KBS producers and also the labor union within the KBS ranks are trying to say is that the documentary is postponing and also the effect that it has and the impact that it has on the media is not a good reflection of our democracy.
Right.
Our democracy, Lina, you want to?
Now, if you're saying that it's not a good reflection of our democracy, are you guys suggesting that they were under some kind of pressure to not air this by, people in power?
Yes. So the KBS leadership with Park Min and also Lee Jae-won, the production head, they asked the producers of the documentary of the Sewol ferry disaster to postpone it to June instead of April and reframe the documentary instead of focusing just on Sewol but also on the plethora
yeah.
of different tragedies and the PTSD to incorporate the larger perspective of South Korean society.
So that sounds like a dilution of the Sewol tragedy.
Right.
They're going to add a whole bunch of other things.
Yeah.
But, all right.
Also keep in mind that the documentary on the Cheonan has already aired in March as well by KBS.
The Rocks Tunan, the
the Rocks
corvette that was
Tunan.
sunk by the North Korean
Yeah,
torpedoes.
right.
It's true. Yeah.
Okay, so one sinking doesn't influence elections, but another does.
Yeah.
So again, maybe I'm too old, but this doesn't really make a whole lot of sense to me. But okay, speaking of other tragedies, fine. If they feel like this is going to influence the elections 8 days after it happened, and let's assume that they are right, though my brain is breaking trying to assume that they are right, then why are they not also talking about the other tragedies that occurred? Because Itaewon is another one, and the Marine who died last July during the monsoon season, they're not exactly coming forward with this either.
Yeah, well, so far, the one important fact to note is that President Yoon Suk-yeol has not made any statement regarding Itaewon or Sewol ferry, and he has not attended the latest 10th anniversary event commemorating.
Okay, so let's try to get something clear. Now, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. Sewol happened 10 years ago. He was not in office. He doesn't have to apologize for this, though, appearing at the anniversary might have helped. But the fact that he won't even mention Itaewon, which happened during his watch. Now, okay, the people who died on that ship 10 years ago in Sewol, they were high school kids. Had they been alive today, they would be about your age right now.
Right.
And so I'm significantly older than you guys. So let's try to break this down. For your generation, what does Sewol and Itaewon mean? And what does this administration's silence mean to you guys?
It has shifted my view towards media and the government in how they are willing to respond to a tragedy and are willing to protect its citizens.
I think just to add on to what Lina said, also I think it's just the whole kind of disappointment that these safety issues towards citizens is recurring constantly. And the Sewol tragedy, as it took the lives of 304 people, mostly high school students. It really goes to show the reluctance of the South Korean political system and also the South Korean government in not answering the questions as to, are we a safer society?
Okay, but I do have to play devil's advocate. Now, the president, as you guys said, did not mention the Sewol tragedy, and he did not attend the anniversary. And so his silence is a choice, and that choice is a politicization of this fact, of this tragedy. But we also do have to talk about the other side of the political aisle. Now, anytime that there has been some sort of a tragic incident, whether we're talking about a ferry sinking or whether we're talking about some accidental industrial death,
Right.
progressives have always made the case that this was conservative administrations not caring about the people. Now, is that really true? Can't it also be said that all of these tragedies, which are tragic, have also been politicized and weaponized by the country's progressives as well?
Well, while I take heed to that argument, in somewhat, the progressive have used Sewol, they've used Itaewon as well, to basically emphasize the basic point, as you've just said, that the past Park Geun-hye administration and also the current Yoon Suk-yeol administration have not had a care for the safety of their own citizens. However, that anger towards the Yoon administration and also the Park Geun-hye administration does not go unmatched. So back in 2014, when Park Geun-hye was supposed to lead rescue operations at the Blue House, she was missing for 7 hours.
Right.
Later, it was found in 2018 by prosecutors that she was doing her hair.
She was getting her hair done,
Yeah.
yes. I do remember that.
Yeah. So this sort of disparity and also this political usage, it's not something that has been forced per se, in my opinion. And also the Yoon administration's lack thereof of understanding as to what the victims' organizations are saying towards not just Sewol, but also the Itaewon disaster, which is hits much closer to home. That is something that I think that a lot of political movements, as you've mentioned, the opposition bloc has used to go against conservative administrations for not caring about the people.
Unlock the full Korea Pro experience by joining our community. Stay informed, stay ahead, and never miss a beat on Korean affairs that matter. Subscribe today and transform the way you understand Korea. All right, week ahead. So, as we mentioned briefly earlier, the president is going to have to fill quite a number of positions in his administration, including the prime minister and the chief of staff. Some of these positions he can fill on his own. Some of these he will need approval from the National Assembly. So, please keep an eye on that. And also, another thing that we will need to keep an eye on is the National Assembly Speaker. Now, there is a lot of talk going on that Choo Mi-ae, who is a sixth-term Democratic Party lawmaker right now, is going to be a potential National Assembly Speaker. Now, I'm going to write an analysis about her, and I will write her profile, which will be published on Friday.
Week Ahead will be sent to your inbox on Monday afternoon. If you want to learn more, subscribe to Korea Pro.
And that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in.
If you want to know more, sign up for our daily executive briefings. We brief you on all you need to know from the past 24 hours and why they matter every morning in your inboxes.
Don't forget to subscribe to our podcast for your weekly dose of insight. And until next time, I'm Jeongmin Kim.
And I'm John Lee. Stay connected, stay informed, and we'll see you next time on the Korea Pro Podcast.